welcome back into the Sean podcast. It is I, the Big Ush. It is he, that Cat Daddy. Cat Daddy, what's on your mind?
Well, our teams won this weekend, so that's always a good way to start out our podcast, start the recording. Celebratory, boom, boom. This wacky, wild, and crazy NFL season continued with some similarities, which is really, it's a crazy season, and every week is going to give us a surprise. Injuries and COVID hit us hard again this week. Nobody wants the number one overall pick except for the Giants, who are really trying their hardest to get there, but they're not really getting there. We saw more teams clinch playoff berths. We saw the Pro Bowl rosters announced, where the votes don't matter because nobody plays, nobody watches a game anyways. And the saddest news of all, we learned of the passing of NFL legend John Madden. And I'm upset because 2021 just couldn't go quietly into the night. No, it had to claim John Madden, who single-handedly had the largest and greatest impact on the game of football. Excellent coach, entertaining genius of a broadcaster, and if they don't put John Madden on the cover of Madden 23, I say we riot and or boycott.
Hopefully they can
His legend needs to live on. Yeah.
I mean, I want his picture on there, but at the same time, they ain't made a good game in 15 years?
Yeah, they can do his legend some good by getting people to buy his game again.
That being said, we're going to do that moment of silence at the end of the pod. But also to honor John Madden, let's just get into this. You know, we can talk about turduckens and everything else later on. But right now, let's get into the games. That's what he was all about. So, it's game time. Starting with that Thursday night game, which was San Francisco traveling to Tennessee. And when this game started, it looked like San Francisco was having that control of the game. But then two things happened. Jimmy G'd, and looks like the Titans, A.J. Brown was the boost they needed, Sean. A.J. Brown had a heck of a game, and the Titans got out of there with a dub, 22-17. What do you think about this game, Sean?
I want to ask, how did San Francisco lose this game? Because they were looking in control of it during that first half. But you're right, the answer is Jimmy G, just Jimmy G'd. He was not taking care of the football. He was not making the best decisions out there. And I think early on, he kind of got shook and he was never able to recover. I mean, he had the huge red zone, end zone interception at the end of the first quarter. The third quarter, his interception was a very ugly overthrow. There should have been a third interception, but Rashaan Evans just couldn't haul it in. He ended up dropping it.
There was the other moment when they were in the red zone again, where he just missed the guy.
Well, he missed Kyle Juszczyk on what would have been like a 40-some-yard touchdown pass on top of that, and he just did Jimmy G things. And Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch believe he's the best quarterback to lead them to the playoffs this year. But games like this show why San Francisco traded two future first-round picks to move up and draft Trey Lance at number 3. This is exactly why. And speaking of Jimmy G...
Well, no. Hold on to that for the next pod.
Oh, no. I got my WTF moment regarding Jimmy G. Yeah.
Oh.
See, I'm just getting this one out of the way early. I'm not going to wait too long for this one. Get early. So, San Francisco general manager John Lynch accidentally and unknowingly liked a tweet slamming Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, the tweet was one that John Lynch was tagged in, and it was calling for the 49ers to leave Jimmy in Nashville as they were traveling back to San Francisco. Somehow, accidentally and unknowingly, he ended up liking this tweet, only to walk it back 18 hours later and unlike the post.
To be fair, Do you really think John Lynch handles his own Twitter account?
I don't know
think
if
so.
he handles his own Twitter accounts, but
Someone
he
got
needs to
fired.
talk.
Someone got fired.
Someone got fired.
Someone
Because
got let go.
apparently this happens shortly after the game, and he said something about being
This is
like
just
at a
almost.
Christmas
This is almost as
service.
bad as T.O.'s media relations lady that one year.
Yep. It's humorous, it's funny, and you're thinking, why? Why? You know, if you're a GM of a team, you don't air any type of dirty laundry on social media because the internet will always remember that you know
Not to
not to
mention,
do
you
that.
need some trade value for that guy. You can't just let it known you're trying to get rid of him.
There's some teams that could be calling for him during the off season.
There are. One I'm hoping will be. We'll talk about that.
You want Jimmy G to go to Dallas? What?
Nope.
What?
Nope. I want them to go to that team that plays in Maryland.
Trayvon Diggs would love to go against Jimmy Garoppolo twice a year.
Yes, he would. All right, next game. I'm gonna let you go on it, but I got some thoughts. Go ahead, Sean.
I don't have any thoughts about this game. It was a lot closer than it should have been. On Christmas Day, Cleveland to Lambeau, Green Bay, I want to use the word escapes with a 22-24 victory.
Survived.
Yeah, survived is actually a much better word. It should not have been this close. Green Bay should not have allowed Cleveland to come back like they did. But it's also what happened the week before against Baltimore, where Green Bay built up a lead, and then second half, the opposing team comes back. They make it much closer than it should have been. For me, the highlights of this game were Aaron Rodgers was making history while Baker Mayfield was making mistakes. Aaron Rodgers becomes the Green Bay Packer leader in touchdown passes. Baker Mayfield throws 4 interceptions. And I know you're probably going to have a problem with that fourth one. That last one night games.
Two of them. I have a problem with 2 of them.
Okay, well I know the fourth one for sure. That one's questionable. I get why people I get why people are saying Green Bay got away with something, but if you watch that a little bit closely, you cannot tell me that Donovan Peoples-Jones was not pushing off Rasul Douglas at the top of his route. So you're going to argue defensive holding versus offensive pass interference.
Offset it. Call the fouls.
Yep, but they didn't call either.
I know.
So here we are.
No, my issue is the very first. No, the second. I think it's the second interception, the one that put Green Bay in the red zone. Clear penalty right there that wasn't called, and the receiver was not pushing off.
Well, I remember nothing of that. So,
but regardless, you played. You don't get to choose the refs. I know that as a Cowboys fan. I'm just stating that Green Bay may have had just a little bit of help.
Yep.
But you take what you get. You take what you get.
You got to take it. You take the lucky breaks, and if the game had been reversed, do you think Cleveland or Cleveland fans were like, "Hey, let's do this"? No, you take it. It's unfortunate because it all balances out. I get it. It all balances out. Sometimes the calls go for you, they go against you. It washes in the end. I know.
At least you have the right attitude here. Don't like after a win like this. This is not the win where you come in pumping up your chest, being like, "Yeah, what? We just beat the Cleveland Browns." No, y'all survived the Cleveland Browns, and y'all should feel good to just like go home with the W.
Yeah, and there's nothing that says Baker Mayfield would have led Cleveland on a potential game-winning drive, but they just didn't have the opportunity to do it.
Not to mention, though, still, I still no, Baker may not be it, but Cleveland still needs some wide receiver help. I mean,
Yeah.
goodness. There's a reason why we keep mocking them wide receivers. Let it be Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, or Traylon Burks.
Yeah,
Like,
and not that this one game means anything for Baker's future, but when you look at the season as a whole and his past couple of years in Cleveland as a whole, like what does this mean for Baker Mayfield's future?
I get it. The problem is, I just don't think we've had a true evaluation of Baker. That's all I'm saying. Some of these other quarterbacks, and I get it. They went out and they tried and they got Odell. Let's be honest. First of all, we've seen Odell in the Rams, and he's shown flashes, but he ain't that guy no more. Right? Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Oh, he is not. No.
So going out and getting Odell is not the same as going out and getting Stephon Diggs, or going out and getting the Jamar Chase, or going out. You get where I'm going here.
Yeah.
You know, having a Keenan Allen and a Mike Williams, like these other young quarterbacks. You know, they went like even Baltimore. Say what you want to say, Marquise Brown has looked pretty good, and when they get the ball to Bateman, he's looked good. You know, and so that's all I'm saying. Baker's weapons have been average at best. Even Jarvis Landry.
Yep, the weapons are one part. I guess his qualities and his characteristics as a quarterback would be the second part. There are
Right.
a couple times watching a game where he's throwing off his back foot. He's throwing off
no.
balance. And you're thinking, what are you doing?
I get you. I get it. But now we'll table some of this Baker conversation for a later date.
We'll have some
I'm
good
sure
off-season
it's gonna
debates.
come back
Yeah.
around. Next up, we had the Indianapolis Colts traveling to Arizona, face those Cardinals, and they're all right. So the Colts win, 22-16. I guess the story of the game for me personally is people were saying, "Oh, look, Carson Wentz showed up and he made plays," and I'm not going to disagree with him. He made some plays.
I will.
He made some plays, but this isn't a situation where we're gonna say Carson Wentz is a legitimate, like, you know, like, I mean, he's driving the bus. That's it. He's driving the bus. His job is to not make mistakes, which he still did. But his job is to not make mistakes and make sure Jonathan Taylor can, do what he does, and the defense will keep him in it. I mean, Sean, you got any other thoughts on this? I mean, also, my other thought, Arizona. Man, they're really missing Hopkins and seemingly J.J. Watt.
Yeah, let me start with the Carson Wentz piece first. I'm thinking of, at least in this game, I'm thinking of Carson Wentz the same way I was thinking about Baker Mayfield. And you have another quarterback making off-balance throws when it's not necessary. Yeah, the pressure is coming, but the pressure wasn't there yet. You're rushing the throw, and it's entirely unnecessary, and it just shows that he was really struggling against Arizona's pressure, the blitz that they were bringing. And for me, it's just frustrating watching those two. We're thinking, okay, well, they're franchise quarterbacks, and they're making these mistakes. Are they really the long-term answers? So Carson Wentz, he didn't look good. So, I mean, the stat line
I agree with you.
is really good, right? It is probably one of his better stat lines in a while. But watching him actually play, it was almost cringeworthy at several points.
Okay, so I'm not the only one here.
Not between us,
what
no.
other people were seeing.
No. That's what I saw from Carson Wentz. Now with Arizona, apparently DeAndre Hopkins was the man that made that offense go.
Obviously.
Now, they have all those other weapons. They still have good
James
wide
Conner was
receivers.
out. James Conner was out.
Chase Edmond was still in. Christian Kirk was in. You still had Rondale Moore. Still had AJ Green.
Where were they?
But I, I don't know. Maybe this offense really does revolve around DeAndre Hopkins more than it does Kyler Murray. And I was really surprised at how conservative Arizona's offense got at the end of the game. Like, you got the ball back and you're down 9 with about 4.5 minutes left in this game, and you're attempting short passes. You didn't attempt to take on Indianapolis deep. It was a 2-possession game at this point. Even when they got within field goal range, and it was 28 seconds left, Cliff Kingsbury opted to go for a field goal on 3rd and goal rather than have one more attempt at the end zone. Now, he could have been afraid of Kyler getting sacked or getting stopped in bounds, running down the clock. But, I mean, even on Kyler Murray, the box score is going to show 0 interceptions. But he was struggling himself, too. He had some accuracy issues. And the defense has certainly looked different since J.J. Watt went out.
All right, next up, we're going to Sunday. And on Sunday, we had the Lions going against the Falcons in a game that I did not need to watch any of. The Lions had a backup quarterback in and still stayed in contention with those Falcons. But the Falcons closed it out with a late game pick. I don't care. To be honest with you, I don't care. I mean, neither of these teams making the playoffs. The Falcons are just putting themselves in mediocrity and into a bad spot, and the Lions are trying hard to get rid of that, to not have that first overall pick. What do you think, Sean?
Detroit almost shocks the world again, this time on the road, led by backup quarterback Tim Boyle.
Meh.
Does a game matter? Not for playoff implications.
Doesn't matter for anything.
For Detroit potentially having the first overall pick, they shouldn't be winning these games, but they're competitive. I get it. They're going to try to win, and they almost did.
I guess.
But man, this looks worse for Atlanta. So much worse.
We knew they weren't that good to begin with.
I know, but not only was it the Detroit Lions, it was a Tim Boyle-led Detroit Lions. Like, if Jared Goff was in there, Detroit, I think, would have won.
I don't think I learned anything new about Atlanta other than they're in a bad spot. That's it. Moving on. Next up, we had the Ravens going against the Bengals. And, man, the Ravens just... injuries mounted up. Josh Johnson did his best. And Joe Burrow took advantage of a depleted Ravens team and went gangbusters.
And this was the same Josh Johnson that was leading the Jets earlier in the season.
Yep.
So Baltimore without Lamar Jackson, without Tyler Huntley, rely on third-string quarterback Josh Johnson. And man, that Baltimore offense, even though they only put up 21 points, Mark Andrews just looks unstoppable no matter who is the quarterback in Baltimore.
Do we have a new best tight end in football?
He's up there. Absolutely. He's up there.
All right.
And
all right.
Cincinnati, Joe Burrow, he came into this game with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder.
Well, I mean, what that man said.
Yeah, Wink Martindale, the Baltimore defensive coordinator, when he was asked about his strategy of putting 3 defenders on Devontae Adams, he responded with Adams was the best wide receiver in the league, and that Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Famer. And then when he was asked if he would put double or triple coverage on Jamar Chase, Martindale responded, no, we're not going to do that. Jamar Chase isn't on Devontae's level, and we're not about to buy a gold jacket for Joe Burrow yet.
There was more reason for Joe to be a little perturbed against the Ravens.
What's that extra piece?
Well, Joe Burrow didn't make the Pro Bowl. But Lamar Jackson did.
It's Pro Bowl. Doesn't matter. Doesn't
Hey,
count.
hey, some of these players just like to have that title next
You
to
know,
their.
I shouldn't say it doesn't count because players have it in contracts that if they make a Pro Bowl, they get a bonus. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it counts.
And
It
let's be honest,
does.
did Lamar deserve to make the Pro Bowl this year? I don't think so.
I mean, we could have a whole other episode of going through the full Pro Bowl roster and
True,
seeing
true
who
that.
deserved this.
True that.
But Joe Burrow came out. He let his play speak. He threw for a career high 525 yards, career high 4 touchdowns. And Zach Taylor just made sure to call a really aggressive game plan for the Bengals because they knew that the Raiders' defense was depleted, especially the secondary. And Ravens, my bad. And he exploited it. I mean, he kept the foot on the pedal. He kept the foot on the neck the whole game. I mean, looking at Joe Burrow against Baltimore this season, 941 yards, 7 touchdowns, 1 interception.
What are we talking about?
Well, I mean, you can throw 3 people on Devontae Adams because he is so good, but also because Green Bay doesn't have many other receiving threats outside of him. Cincinnati, it's hard to put 3 defenders on Jamar Chase because you also have Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins.
We're going to talk about this later on, actually, in the next episode. So we're going to move on. We're going to go to the Rams, traveling to Minnesota to face the Vikings. Yeah, this game, I don't think anybody really wanted to win this game, to be honest. I think both teams did not look very good. Like it was like, we're gonna look really good here, and we're gonna look really bad here. The Rams got out of there. They did look like the better team, but they didn't still look that great. What do you think?
No, it didn't look great. Matt Stafford didn't look good. For me, the real bright spot for this Rams team was Aaron Donald on defense. I think he created 7-8 pressures on Kirk Cousins.
He was
just
wrecking it.
Crushing the offensive line. They stood no chance against him. But it was... Was there anything exciting about this game that I can't remember? Minnesota's secondary was bad.
Yet they still picked off Matthew Stafford. Well, no,
that was a linebacker. That was Anthony Barr. Yeah.
No. The secondary got one. They got one.
But I think it comes down to Matt Stafford, or Matthew Stafford, wasn't making the best decisions out there.
One of them, like, how did Anthony Barr? I mean, it was a really athletic play, but Matthew Stafford, you got to get that over his head. The one to Cooper Kupp, that was literally a swing pass, and Anthony Barr's like, "Oh, you're just gonna put it right there?"
Don't mind if I do.
All right, next up, we had the Buffalo Bills who traveled to New England. Apparently, Buffalo took exception to the win game, and they beat the brakes off of New England this week, 33-21. Buffalo basically controlled this game pretty much the whole game. New England, they ran for some good stuff. Damian Harris did some stuff. Mac Jones did not look great. And Buffalo did what they did. One of your old running mates, or I'm saying running mates, one of your old Green Bay Packers had a really good game, best game of the season for him. Micah Hyde, 2 picks. Yeah, I had to poke that wound.
I know. Oh. Okay, I'm gonna stop being sad. Buffalo came into this game ready to win. I figured that they were going to be angry from that win game.
That angry?
Opening drive, they faced a 4th and 2 at the 3-yard line. They go for it, results in a touchdown to Isaiah McKenzie, star of the show there. And I think that set the tone for the game because I, I'd have to go back and count, but there weren't many, if any, punts that I saw. I know Buffalo didn't punt at all. They went for it on fourth down numerous times, quite successful. Um,
I just loved at one point one of the announcers, because someone was asking, they were asking, like, are they going to go for it on fourth? And he's like, well, that's this team's MO.
yeah, they're playing aggressive, and they needed to. That Mac Jones, he's looking more like a rookie now than he was earlier in the season. And I don't know. It could be the better teams. It could be the game plan where they were relying on the run, and he was able to get into a comfort zone passing.
Also, teams have tape on them.
And then now is the point where if New England's trailing, can they rely on Mac Jones to win at least this year? He's a rookie, right? You got to give him some break there, but he just wasn't looking very good.
Now,
yeah. Oh, I do want to mention my favorite play of the entire game. It was the start of the second quarter. New England's facing a 4th and 1, and they ran a speed option play with Mac Jones. That was a really fun play to see because you don't see that in the pros too much, and you never thought that Mac Jones would be running a speed option. But apparently he was threatening enough to fool Gregory Rousseau, and then he was able to pitch it to Damian Harris for an easy first down. I just really enjoyed that play.
All right, next up, we have Sean's favorite game of the week. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars heading into New York to face those Jets. Are there any are these the two worst rosters in the league right now?
Man, I want to say Houston's up there, but with the way Houston played, I don't know anymore.
These are the two worst rosters in the league. And Jacksonville's worse. Jacksonville's worse.
Yes, that I will agree to.
Once James Robinson went down, there was nothing for them. I mean, I rewatched this game just to see how these quarterbacks were playing. First part of this, and this is something that you may want to debate, Trevor Lawrence was better than Zach Wilson throwing the football. Zach Wilson did pretty much all his dirty work on the ground.
Yeah.
2, the receivers for Trevor Lawrence are like allergic to the football. I saw multiple drops, at least one in the end zone. It like bounced off his chest. Like, it's bad. It's bad. They need overhauls for like the Jags. Like, goodness, I feel bad for Trevor Lawrence because it's looking like he's having a terrible season. And yes, he's played not probably great, but I can see why.
You know, when you're thinking of a battle of the first 2 picks in the draft, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, you would think that there would be some hype and some excitement for the game, seeing the number 1 and number 2 picks face off against one another. But this was a game where it's like I didn't want to watch. I was surprised that the combined points scored between the two was 47.
You know
which
who
I
the
thought was ridiculously
the pass catchers were in this game? Do you want to know who the wide receivers in this game are?
For Zach Wilson, it was an offensive lineman in the end zone.
No, but do you want to know who the guys that they had that reading the stat sheet? Tell me if you're a defensive coordinator, do you care about this? Mm-hmm. So for the Jets, you had Braxton Berrios, who had probably the best game. Denzel Mims, and I don't remember who else is there. What was it? Is Crowder even playing?
No. Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, Jamison Crowder were all out.
Like, think about that. And then for the Jags, so I think Chenault was out of this game. So there's that. So he's got Tavon Austin, Marvin Jones, and
Laquan Treadwell.
What is this? Is this 5 years ago?
Now, if it were Tavon Austin and Laquan Treadwell like 8 years ago in college, like yeah, as a defensive
You get what I'm
coordinator, I got
saying.
some game
You
planning to
get what
do.
I'm saying here.
Exactly,
This is
exactly.
not what you trot a young quarterback out with. This is bad.
No, no, it certainly is. And I don't think things are going to improve as much or as quickly as Trevor Lawrence wants them to because Jacksonville is talking about bringing Trent Baalke back as their GM. And I'm thinking, one, this is a huge mistake because he hasn't drafted well ever. And two, it's only going to hurt your head coaching search that you're currently doing. Because if the GM is already in place, it's going to make it harder finding a
We'll
head
talk about that.
coach. And
We'll talk about that.
I know, I know.
We'll tease that. We'll talk about that.
And I know that Jacksonville didn't have a lot of talent on the field, and they didn't look like they had a will to win this game, but I have a really hard problem with the end of the game. And I think this is on Trevor Lawrence. Now, it might be on play calling, it might be the talent of the field, but when you're down five, there's 30 seconds left in the game, and you have a first and goal on the 5 yard line. Your first down, you throw an incomplete pass, and you throw the pass to the only player who was not in the end zone. Now, fortunately, it was incomplete. The clock stopped. Second down, you make a poor choice with throwing to Marvin Jones Jr. It almost gets picked off by C.J. Mosley. Marvin Jones somehow catches it, which is amazing. Short of the goal line, exactly, and the clock runs. So now the clock's running, got about 13 seconds left. Third down, what does Trevor Lawrence do? Spikes the ball. He kills an entire play.
At the same time.
Like a yard out.
At the same time, you want to put it on Trevor, fair enough. Rookie quarterback. This is where the coach comes in.
What coach? Exactly.
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 So I get putting it on Trevor, but again, those are the situations where it's on the coaching staff when you have a rookie quarterback. I don't care how highly touted the rookie quarterback is. Rookies are going to do stupid things in that order. It's not like you got Aaron Rodgers back there. He's got Trevor Lawrence.
And I don't think Jacksonville ever practiced being in this situation.
Which is not a bad thing. All right, moving on to another team that's making poor choices, but I'm okay with it. The New York Giants went into Philadelphia to face those Eagles. And for the first, let's say, half of the game, I mean, it was boring. Nothing really happened. And then the Eagles exploded with a bunch of points. They beat them 34-10. Your boy showed up with a darn good touchdown. That's all I got.
You know, my note not even pertaining to this game. The Giants went 0 for 2 on the day. They lost the Eagles, and they also took a huge loss when reports came out that they were bringing back Joe Judge and Daniel Jones for the 2022 season. Apparently, the team believes that both of these guys deserve an opportunity to prove themselves next year.
Oh, it was all Jason Garrett. It was all Dave Gettleman.
Yeah. I mean, nothing was said about Dave Gettleman, which is kind of telling to me because I think he's going to be gone. But does New York draft a quarterback early next year, having Daniel Jones still on the roster?
No, they don't. Which will be maybe they're waving the white flag. They know that next year they're going to suck, and they don't believe in these other quarterbacks, so they're just going to wait to.
But if they get rid of Dave Gettleman, then it's almost like the reverse situation of Jacksonville, where you have a head coach in place and you're trying to find a GM just to replace your head coach next year. Because if Joe Judge survives this offseason, how many games does he really survive next year before?
So they're pulling the Jets? They're pulling the Jets. That's what the Jets did. They had Adam Gase in. They brought in the GM, I forgot his name, and then they fire Adam Gase and they bring in Robert Saleh and draft a quarterback.
Maybe it's a New York thing. Maybe I don't understand.
All right, off of this because let's be honest, we don't really care.
No.
The Eagles could make the playoffs, but we'll talk about it in the next segment. The Bucs traveled to Carolina, beat the brakes off those Carolina Panthers because Matt Rule does not know what he's doing. Enough said, move on.
It was a really odd strategy for Matt Rule. He puts Cam Newton starts the game.
Odd, you mean
He
dumbass,
puts Sam Darnold in the game early in the second quarter. The crowd boos Sam Darnold. And then all of a sudden, Sam Darnold hits Shi Smith for a 63-yard gain, putting them in the red zone. Then Matt Rule puts Cam Newton back in for 2 plays. He does nothing, so Rule's like, all right, well, let me put Sam Darnold in. Sam Darnold comes in, 3rd and goal, 8-yard line, takes a sack, which forces Carolina to kick a field goal. Congratulations, they had a kicker on their roster this week. And this isn't college. You can't alternate quarterbacks like that. And it's even challenging in college to do.
Like I said, this is dumb.
And there's no surprise that there were fire Rule chants going on through Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte. But this was Joe Brady's fault, right? Right? This was all Joe Brady. That's what firing him, it fixed everything? Okay, sure.
Sure.
But I do want to say something positive about the Carolina Panthers, because I think this might be the only opportunity for the rest of this season to say something positive about the Carolina Panthers. So I gotta take advantage of this. All-pro running back Christian McCaffrey surprised 363 military families by paying off their layaway balances before Christmas.
There you go.
All-pro on the field, all-pro off the field, and this is going to be the last good thing that we can say about Carolina this year.
All right, next up, you know already my thoughts. We had the Los Angeles Chargers traveling to Houston. They must have forgot their game because Houston Texans put it on them, 41-29. I'm not even sure what happened here. But Sean, could Davis Mills be a legitimate starter in this league?
Short answer is no.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
Yes. I
because
feel pretty
the last
positive.
couple weeks, he's looked pretty good.
He has been probably one of the better looking rookie quarterbacks this entire season.
Rookie quarterbacks. He's been pretty solid as a quarterback overall. I don't know, Sean. I don't know.
No, I'd have to look at it further, but there's a reason he fell to day 3 in this draft. He wasn't taken any sooner, so that might warrant
It's because of the lack of experience.
Further investigation. I don't think he's a long-term answer.
No. If you look at the draft nucks, it was because he barely had any starts. He's a very inexperienced guy, but they said the tools are there, but he's just very inexperienced.
Yep. But we have the Texans beating the Chargers, and all I gotta say is embrace the chaos. Just embrace it. Like, how did the Chargers drop this game to the lowly Houston Texans? And the answer is easy, and it's not Davis Mills. The answer is turnovers. The Chargers had 3 turnovers on the day that led to 17 points by the Texans.
How did that Chargers defense, first of all, give up that many yards on the ground to Rex Burkhead? And
I
2,
know.
Davis Mills. Did you see some of the passes that he was throwing out there?
Didn't see many of them.
Go back and watch some of the. He made some really nice passes. I'm serious.
Yeah, it's the absence of Joey Bosa and other members on the defensive line. I think those absences were bigger than Austin Eckler and Mike Williams in offense.
Indeed. We will see on this aspect. Next up, we had the Chicago Bears traveling to Seattle, where apparently Seattle did its best Chicago imitation by snowing, and the Bears, knowing how to play in a snow game, came out of this with a 25-24 victory. Meh.
Just a little bit more chaos for you to embrace. Now, it's not quite as much as Houston beating the Chargers, because the Chargers are a potential playoff team, and neither of these two teams are going for any playoff position anymore. But Chicago comes from behind to score 11 points in the fourth quarter. They steal the victory from Seattle. And you're
Should
thinking
Pete
the high.
Carroll be on the hot seat? Well, we'll talk about that.
We'll
Talk about that.
have the people tune in to our next segment when we talk about our hot seat. We'll see if Pete Carroll shows up on there. But in this game, the clear highlight was the Chicago Bear touchdown and subsequent 2-point conversion with less than a minute left. And they were led by Nick Foles, number 3 quarterback. Nick Foles, who hits Jimmy Graham for a touchdown, which means this is a Jimmy Graham revenge game. Yay.
Nah. There's nothing about this game I feel intrigued about. Nick Foles is playing, so what? There's only one thing that really is even close to intriguing about this game. Honestly, I think Russell looks very disinterested in being in Seattle. I see a very messy divorce coming.
Yep. I can see that too, because Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson, it's heading toward a divorce.
All right, next up, we have the Steelers traveling to Kansas City. Steelers might as well not even showed up. Now, I know Mike Tomlin's safe because of what Mike Tomlin has done over the years. But he is staring down the barrel of his first losing season. Possibly.
I called it earlier in the season. I'm like, this is going to be Mike Tomlin's first losing season. And I'm almost right. But then they got that pesky tie, which really complicates things. So.
But it's just... Steelers have a lot of work to do. I'm just saying, like, Mike Tomlin's going to have to convince the brass that they got to rebuild, because they got a lot of work to do with that offensive line and with their quarterback's position. And they're in a messy little area just like the Falcons. Now, as for the Chiefs, they're looking good going into the postseason. It is a coincidence. I'm calling it coincidence. I'm not saying anything about it, not trying to be a conspiracy guy, but all of a sudden Tyreek Hill, he's on the COVID list. Then he's not on the COVID list for the game, and he's on the COVID list again. Now, my only question is he unvaccinated and he was close contact? Is that what this is about? Or did he test positive? Because there are questions here.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Just saying.
Yeah, a couple thoughts. I don't think Pittsburgh is going to I think they're going to try and acquire a veteran quarterback to continue, because I don't think Pittsburgh is the type of team that's like, you know what, let's go ahead and just rebuild. I don't think that's going to happen. They're going to fight their way through and just build as they go. Hopefully they make smarter choices in the first round, whether it's drafting a long-term future quarterback or increasing the talent in your offensive line. I hope it's one of those two. And Kansas City was just going off.
They really were. But at the same time, they didn't want this game to end, which was weird. Because, like, Patrick Mahomes, run the ball sometime, please. Like, you're up, you're killing them. Take some freaking time off. End the game. And this is not just because I might have been going against them in fantasy. It's just when you have the other two games that are on, who like are at the the 3 2-minute mark, and Pittsburgh and Kansas City are at like the 10-minute mark. Come on. And there haven't been challenges. That's wacky. Anyways, and one team has been dominating the whole time. That's the other big part. That game should have been the quickest game over. But hey, moving on. So the Broncos traveling to the Raiders. Yeah, Drew Lock ain't it.
What? What? Oh. This game, I'm going to start with the defense. The Denver defense did their job. Josh Jacobs was just a force out there. He got 129 yards on the ground. It's hard to stop a running back when he's going like that. Outside of Josh Jacobs, Denver's defense did their job. They limited
Yes, they did.
Las Vegas to only 17 points. The offense is where the work needs to be done, especially around that quarterback position, because we saw Drew Lock out there, and Drew Lock was doing
Could it
his
be an
best.
Aaron?
No. Drew Lock was doing his best Teddy Bridgewater impersonation out there. He was going out, he was avoiding turnovers, but by doing that, it was also limiting their offense because the Raiders didn't fear his arm. The Raiders like, okay, well, we'll let you take these conservative throws, but you know what we're going to do? We're going to take away your running game. The team had 16 total rushing attempts. They ended up with 18 total yards rushing. And a lot of that was Javonte Williams because Melvin Gordon somehow found himself with negative rushing yards on the day. It was bad. It was embarrassing for Denver.
I was going against Melvin Gordon also, so that was fantastic.
Yeah, good for you. And the touchdown that Javonte Williams had, it wasn't set up by the offense. It wasn't because Drew Lock led them down the field. It's because Bradley Chubb had the interception on Derek Carr and he took it down to like the 1-2 yard line. So it wasn't as if Denver's offense was getting it done. So does Vic Fangio find himself on the hot seats? Why is
Possibly.
Pat Shurmur still calling plays?
Don't know. Next up, we have the Washington football team coming into Irving, Texas to face those Dallas Cowboys, bringing their heated benches.
How'd that work out for him?
Well, Jerry Jones went on and said, you know something, I'd like to keep those benches. Because the Dallas Cowboys beat the living pea out of the Washington football team 56-14. Clicking on all cylinders. The offense was killing it. The defense was killing it. Washington could do nada, nothing, no how. They pulled Dak Prescott after the first drive in the fourth quarter. No, they pulled him in the third quarter, I think.
Yeah, I thought it was the third quarter because
It was
Cooper
the
Rush
third
came in.
quarter Dak got pulled. Like, players just started getting pulled because it was just like,
Why risk
Mike
injury?
McCarthy's big on player safety, and there was no point. And even Cooper Rush was leading the Cowboys to touchdowns. Goodness, Washington football team, you got problems.
Hey, at least they lost in comfort, okay? They had their own benches. It was more comfortable this way. For the Cowboys, this was another one of those games where I felt Dallas's defense could have been on the field for a full 60 minutes going against Washington's offense.
And still would have won.
And they still would have won because Dallas's defense and special teams put up 14 points by themselves, just as many as Washington did. And I hear people saying that Washington has no fight in them. And I'm like, to a point, you're right.
Well, wait,
did you
let
see
me get this.
Jonathan?
Let me get this. That is my WTF moment. That is my WTF moment. It comes from this game. Here's the thing. There are cameras everywhere, buds. I get that players get into altercations. But Deron Payne, that's a no-no. You don't poke a man in the face. You can yell at him all you want. But you poked him in the face. And Jonathan Allen took offense to that and threw a right hook. Now note, he didn't hit him flush. Or I think Deron Payne would have been out like a light. I'm thankful for that. Because Deron Payne was on my fantasy team. But at the same time, as a fan of the other team, you gotta sit there and you think, when the one team is fighting, that means your team must be doing some real stuff to them.
Yep. So they still have some fight in them. They just showed amongst themselves.
All right, next
So,
up, let's get out of this one because not much else to say. Because it's all bad for Washington, all good for Dallas. Um, yeah, shaping up for that in Green Bay, Cowboys, Mike McCarthy, Packers conference championship game. Anyways, uh, we've got the Monday night game, which was the Dolphins going into the Bayou to face the Saints. And I could talk about how Tua has looked really good lately. I know the box score doesn't say too much in this one, but that Saints defense is really, really good. And Tua still held his own. I could say how Jalen Waddle, wide receiver 2, by the way, uh, has turned out to be all we've hoped him for, even though they haven't even used him the way that they really probably should. That's still probably going to come. I think Dolphins make the playoffs. Anyways, that's not the story of this game. The story of this game is that I saw quite possibly the worst QB performance that I have ever seen in my entire life. And people remember, I've watched football with Chad Hutchinson and who's the other guy from Michigan who went to went to play baseball and then the Cowboys brought him in. Whatever his name was, like that year of football was quite atrocious.
that was a bad year.
Quite atrocious for the Cowboys. So I've seen some bad quarterback play.
Was it Drew
But
Hansen?
this- yes, Drew Hansen. Terrible. This was by far. Oh, I also saw a wide receiver for the Denver Broncos playing quarterback. And this is by far the worst I've ever seen someone playing quarterback in the NFL. Ian Book, you do not belong on an NFL football field. Go back to school, try to coach, something. Because this is not for you, bud. I'm sorry. Calling a spade a spade. Go ahead, Sean.
We were talking earlier, and we were talking about how Ian Book shouldn't be on the field, and it's exactly right. Ian Book should not have been on the field. Jameis Winston was out. Trevor Siemian was out. Taysom Hill was out.
They should
Sean
have put Blake
Payton.
Bortles in.
Sean Payton tried calling Drew Brees, and Drew Brees is like, nah, I'm out. And they're stuck with Ian Book.
He tried Phillip Rivers also.
So they were trying
but
everything
he
before
put
they
Blake
got.
Bortles in. Blake Bortles belongs on the field more than Ian Book.
Yeah, it's tough when you just sign a guy to your team and then throw him into the
Hey,
lineup.
Washington did it with Garrett Gilbert, and I know they lost, but Garrett Gilbert looked better than that.
Yeah, I think they're showing that Ian Book was taking an average of, I think it was like 3.8 seconds to throw the ball, which for a quarterback is an eternity because you should be getting the ball out like less than 2.5.
I'm sorry, I'm watching this game, and yes, maybe Kamara was on my fantasy team, so maybe I was extra frustrated. But I'm seeing Kamara wide open, and this dude is like, do what every other quarterback for the Saints, even Drew Brees does. Dump, 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 dump. I can do that. But Ian Book is like, I don't see nobody. Run backwards. Run to the sideline.
Run to the side, throw an interception. Yeah, it was a rough game. Congratulations to Ian Book for continuing a game streak, which includes starting quarterbacks losing 23 consecutive games in the NFL. Man, it's a rough one. But let's switch gears to Miami. Miami becomes the first team in NFL history to win 7 consecutive games, but also
And-
lose 7 consecutive games in the same season. And Miami won by doing Miami things. They played solid defense. They had a pick 6 on Ian Book on his second attempt at the game of his season, of his career. They had 8 total sacks on the day. They gave more touches to running backs named Myles Gaskin, Duke Johnson, and I think Philip Lindsay each had 13 themselves. Myles Gaskin had like 3. So that continues. And then the the plan of just throwing short passes to Jalen Waddle, because Tua only has eyes for Jalen Waddle, which I really
That he
appreciate
does.
for fantasy football. He had 10 catches, 92 yards, a
But it was
nice
working out for him.
touchdown.
It's
He was
working
able
out
to
for him.
hit the Waddle celebration in the end zone. I really like that. It's really underrated. And all those receptions bring Jalen Waddle up to 96 in the season. Anquan Bolden's rookie record is 101. So at this rate, I'm imagining during Miami's second possession, Jalen Waddle should have the rookie record for receptions in a season. And Miami needs to stop bringing Jacoby Brissett in on third down.
Yes.
Stop.
All right.
Stop.
All right. That's all we've got for that, folks. So right now, I'm going to give you that moment of silence for the legend John Madden. So, here it is. All right. Sean, you didn't have to hold your breath.